Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the NatureCity podcast. I'm your host, Carl Pradelli, and I'm also the CEO and co-founder of NatureCity, having started the company over 20 years ago with my wife, Beth. And since then, it's been our privilege to have served over 500,000 Americans by offering them the best supplements we can make. So we have to start off by saying Happy New Year to everyone, and let's hope it's a good one. So now that the holidays are over and we're getting more refocused on our weight management goals, we wanted to start off the year by talking about an ingredient that won the ingredient of the year for weight management last year. It's called Morosil, and it works a little differently than some other things you may have tried or heard about. So we're going to talk about that today. And to join us, to help me break it down, we are joined by Jodi-Ann Blackwood, who is with the company that supplies Morosil and makes Morosil, Bionap. It's an Italian company. Morosil comes from Sicily. And Jodi-Ann is one of the managers of the Bionap USA business. So Jodi-Ann, great to see you. Welcome.
Hi, Carl. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. It's indeed a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. And we're really excited about Morosil because there's one thing we know from the research is if you're going to start a diet exercise program, you want to add Morosil because it can help accelerate those results. So, Jodi-Ann, why don't we just start off really by saying, what is Morosil and, where's it come from?
Okay, so Morosil is a water-soluble standardized extract, and it's obtained from the fruit juice from the moro variety, which is a type of blood orange. What we found through our clinical studies is that Morosil is able to provide a natural solution to weight management. You asked where it comes from. The moro orange is native to Sicily, so Morosil is from Sicily.
Now, I've never been. I assume you have been. I'm pretty jealous. I need to get there someday.
Yeah, it's beautiful, and it's beautiful to see the actual oranges. So
absolutely,
you should visit.
Absolutely, and Sicily is certainly known for producing really nutrient-rich, not to mention delicious, fruits and vegetables, particularly in the area surrounding the Mount Etna volcano, which is, I guess, the largest active volcano in, I think, in Europe.
Yeah.
So, why does Sicily produce all these great looking, great tasting fruits and vegetables?
Well, Sicily, the land of Sicily definitely has unique characteristics, and these unique characteristics are passed on to the plants and fruits that are grown on the land there. Bionap's farmlands actually surround a protected geographical area around Mount Etna, and as you mentioned, it's the most active volcano. So it's constantly spewing ash into the air, which of course makes its way into the soil. So you find that you have a soil that's rich in nutrients and minerals. And it's also unique because Mount Etna provides its own microclimate. So the area sees drastic changes in temperature during the day and the night, warm days, colder nights. And to protect themselves within that time, the plants and fruits, as a defense mechanism, they produce more actives. And you'll find that the plants and fruits have more actives than their counterparts grown in other parts of the globe.
Absolutely. Not only do these plants have great, high levels of polyphenols and antioxidants to help protect us, but they're really trying to protect themselves by what you say is, very challenging climate conditions and growing conditions. So I think you mentioned the moro oranges, and that's where the name Morosil comes from, the moro oranges, from Sicily. You mentioned they're blood oranges, but not all blood oranges have the weight management properties that you've seen with Morosil. Is this right?
Yes. So Morosil is very unique. Each blood orange has benefits to the body. It's something that we've studied here intensely at Bionap. Bionap was founded on the science behind the blood oranges. But what we found is that the Morosil is most unique. It's like a standout. It stands alone. And it's the only one that has shown that it's able to assist in the weight management or has properties that assist in weight management.
So Jodi-Ann, what is it nutritionally about the nutritional composition of the Sicilian moro oranges that makes them unique?
Well, the moro oranges we found are rich in anthocyanins, and this is something that actually accounts for that deep, dark, rich red color that they have. So the phytocomplex within, rich in anthocyanins, it also has flavonoids, hydroxycinnamic acid, and ascorbic acid. And these work synergistically against the fat cells within our bodies. So what we found is that it's able to reduce the accumulation of the fat in the adipose cells.
Excellent. And that's essentially how these nutritional compounds, I guess, are helping weight management, essentially by, helping inhibit the fat accumulation. Is that essentially what's going on?
Correct. So the Morosil supplementation assists in the reducing the fat accumulation within these cells.
So, where maybe you look at some other ingredients, you talk about fat burning. That's not really what we're talking about here. We're really talking about counteracting fat accumulation as opposed to fat burning.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yes. Morosil is not a fat burner. As I mentioned, we work at the site of the adipose tissue in reducing that fat accumulation at that site.
Excellent. So before we get into some of the specific findings from your research, we want to clarify, Morosil is really meant to be used with a sensible diet and exercise program if you're looking to shed some excess pounds, or where Morosil really shines, which is some excess fat and inches on your body. Is that right?
Yes, that's definitely right. Morosil supplementation is not meant to replace any sensible diet or exercise. Nothing can replace a sensible diet and an exercise program. And what we found is, with the emergence of the pandemic, a lot of persons found themselves in a more sedentary lifestyle, less movement, gaining weight, snacking, eating unhealthy foods. And now post-pandemic, the focus we've seen has shifted, and persons want to shed those excess pounds and at a faster rate. And Morosil is able to assist them with that.
Exactly. So we advise our clients. So we use Morosil in our TrueSlim product for the audience at NatureCity. And we really say it can be helpful to you in two ways, right? If you're pursuing a diet and exercise program, as you were alluding to, Jodi-Ann, Morosil can help significantly accelerate those results. Or two, if you're just trying to maintain where you are, Morosil can also help. And do you think the research, supports this advice?
Yes, definitely. Science has always been at the forefront of our portfolio and the ingredients within our portfolio. So here at Bionap, we've conducted 2 clinical studies to support our claims on Morosil and its weight management abilities. So the first clinical study that we conducted, that was a standalone. Persons were just taking Morosil in a capsule. There was no restriction, no diet, no exercise program, nothing. And we saw great results. We saw reductions in weight loss, in reductions in weight loss. We also saw a reduction in BMI, and reductions in hip and waist circumference. So with those great results that we saw, we then went on to conduct a second clinical study, to further bolster the claims that we have, but now in conjunction with, a calorie restricted diet and exercise. And what we saw were statistically significant results. So the science definitely supports the claims that we have on our product.
Yeah, no, I think that second study was really a nice, robust study. I think there were over 100 participants, if I recall correctly. And the interesting about it was a pretty broad age group too. I think you had folks, anywhere from early 20s to 60s. We can still consider those 60s young people, by the way, in case you're wondering. I'm not as young as you, but young still. And I think it was really after you published the second study, which not only was it a larger study, it was a long in duration, 6 months. I think that's really when you won the Ingredient of the Year award that I mentioned at the outset, which came from a publication called NutraIngredients, industry publication that's respected. So let's talk a little bit more about that second study, because I think it is really the landmark study for Morosil. And, involved, like I said, it was a good sized study, 6 months. You had a placebo group who was, I guess, like you said, pursuing a calorie restricted diet. And I think also you had some exercise parameters. What were those? I think it was like maybe walking 3 times a week or something.
Yeah, it was walking 3 times a week for 30 minutes. So very light cardio.
Right. So it wasn't like, it was high intense exercise or doing CrossFit or
Right,
something. It was just walking
right.
30 minutes 3 times a week. So moderate amount of activity, but just get your body moving, right? Along with a little
Yes,
more sensible
yes.
diet. So what else, before we get into specific results, anything else notable in terms of an overview of the study you want to share?
Yes, well, this was a double-blind placebo-controlled trial that we conducted, and it was an ethnically inclusive study as well. So it included Caucasians and Asians. As you mentioned, for the age range, we had persons as young as 20 up to 65, persons with a BMI between 25 to 30. As you mentioned, 102 participants within that study, so a great size study, and they took the Morosil supplementation of 400 milligrams for 6 months. And this was also conducted under TGA guidelines in Australia.
Right.
So, our focus was really to assess the results of Morosil supplementation on weight management, its effect on weight loss, BMI, the hip and waist circumference, but also we employed the DEXA scan analysis to measure actual fat loss and changes in body composition. So this is just a brief overview of the study.
Well, it was a pretty robust study. I mean, and I think you actually had more higher concentration of women than men. Is that true?
Yes, that's true. I mean, women are more I don't know how to say this, but more concerned about the figure and managing their weight, and so we had a higher enrollment of women than men. I think it was twice the amount in both groups, in the placebo group and the treated group. But yeah, so we had a fair amount of women being represented.
Yep. Nothing wrong with that. And so just to be clear, in case summarize for the audience, so we had two groups. You split those 100 people essentially into two groups. Both groups are pursuing, reduced calorie intake, walking 3 times a week for 30 minutes, except one was taking Morosil and one other was taking a placebo, right? And really, the
Right.
goal is really to see how much Morosil, or if it could accelerate the results from the diet and exercise program alone. Is that a fair summary?
That is a fair summary. Thank you so much, Carl.
No worries. Let's a little bit talk about let's talk about the results. As I said earlier, I think Morosil really shines when it comes to fat loss. Measured by inches around the waist, hips. But let's talk about the weight loss results too, because they were very interesting. Also, what were the results for the two groups?
Yes. So with the study, we actually saw statistically significant results versus the placebo at that 6-month mark of supplementation. So to get into a few numbers here, on average, individuals lost over 8 pounds versus the placebo, whereas they lost roughly around 4 pounds. So we had a 4.2% reduction in the treated group for weight loss. For the placebo, it was around 2.2, so roughly 2% loss of weight.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, if you look at the impact of Morosil, essentially it was twice as much weight lost as the group that was only doing the diet and exercise program. So, and that's really what we meant by earlier about you can really accelerate your results, perhaps even lose twice as much in a time frame. Of course, we're talking about averages here, so individual results are going to vary, by person. But if you add it all up, men, women, age, you basically they experience twice as much weight loss with Morosil than just with the diet and exercise alone, which is terrific, right?
Yes, that is definitely perfect.
So, and that was from taking 400 milligrams of Morosil daily for 6 months. So let's talk a little bit about inches lost, because again, I think this is where the numbers get really, really interesting for a lot of folks, because you don't, a lot of times what happens, people, say, well, I lost weight, but I feel like I lost a lot of muscle. I'm really trying to lose fat. I think with Morosil, it's the real focus is more on the fat loss than just the weight loss. Is that fair?
That's a fair assessment for sure.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about, the inches lost. Let's talk a little first about the results around, waist measurements. What did we find there?
Well, as I mentioned before, in terms of the criteria and what we were looking for, we were definitely looking for that change in the waist and hip circumference. And what we found is that Morosil provides a slimming effect. So, and that's great for the women that were a part of the study,
Yeah.
For the waist, on average, individuals lost almost 2 inches off their waist in the treated group. Versus the placebo where it was like less than an inch.
Yeah, I think I was looking at it earlier today. I think it was like 0.7. Does that sound familiar? 0.7 inches in the placebo, which isn't bad. That's progress just from the diet and exercise.
0.7.
0.7. Okay, good.
That's exactly.
So, I mean, that's good. That's
Yes.
progress. But to go from, I'm sure if we asked most people watching, they'd rather get the 2 inches versus the 0.7 inches from all the effort they're putting into diet and exercise. And really, that really was the value of Morosil, right? You lost essentially 2.8 times, if you did the math, more on your waist by adding Morosil to what you're doing in terms of a reduced calorie and doing some walking. And staying active, that's a big win, right? Don't you think?
Definitely.
Yeah. And let's talk a little about the hip measurements, because I think there were some good results there too.
Okay, so for the treated group, we saw reductions on the hip of 2.8%. So I believe in the treated group, the hip reduction in terms of inches was 1.4. For the placebo group, we saw just a 0.8 reduction. So I think that rounds out to about 1 point something percent reduction.
Yeah, I think it sounds like about 1.6 times better. I think it's 1.6, 1 point.
The treated group.
Yeah,
yes,
with the Morosil versus the placebo. So again, just showing how you can accelerate the results that you see. Wasn't quite as dramatic as the waist, where people lost 2.8 times more, but 1.6
right.
still is a win for those who were trying to shed fat and shed inches. Jodi, I know you did a lot of other analysis in this study. You mentioned the DEXA scan imaging technology that you used. Were there any other notable findings you'd like to share?
So other notable findings that we'd love to share, of course, reductions in BMI. So that was something that we also monitored. And with the treated group, the Morosil supplemented group, we found that individuals had 2 times the results of those in the placebo group. As you mentioned, we employed the DEXA scans to understand the fat loss within the body versus bone and muscle density. For those who work out, they're constantly building muscle. So it's good to analyze the density of the muscle versus the fat that they lost, how ripped they are, how toned they are, etc. So with the DEXA scan analysis, what we found was a total fat loss averaging around 5 pounds. And we also monitored results of the subcutaneous fat, abdominal fat, and visceral fat. And we saw statistically significant results in these areas. So with the DEXA scan analysis, what we found is that it is able to change the total body composition with Morosil supplementation.
So it's great that the DEXA imaging technology was able to concern that the majority of the fat loss people experience with Morosil. I'm sorry, the majority of the weight loss they experienced with Morosil was indeed fat loss, which is the goal for most of us. One of the things our clients are also concerned about, Jodi-Ann, is what are any unwanted effects that were noticed that were noted in the study. I know you guys did you tracked liver and metabolic health markers. Are there any concerns there, or any other part of your research from a safety perspective?
No, Morosil is a safe and effective supplement. In the treated group, I believe one individual had reported symptoms, and these were symptoms like nausea, constipation, headaches, vomiting, etc. But these symptoms are not symptoms that can be tied to Morosil in any way. So in terms of the parameters that you mentioned, in terms of the liver and metabolic parameters, all safety markers were of a good standing in the study.
So no material changes in an unwanted direction from taking Morosil for 6 months. Well, that's certainly good to hear, reassuring to hear. So for those who are just looking to take Morosil to help maintain their weight or waist sizes, can Morosil be used daily for extended periods of time?
Yes, definitely. As I mentioned, it's a safe and effective product. It's well tolerated, and Morosil can be implemented into a person's nutritional, supplement benefits for any duration of time. This study, as you mentioned, it was lengthy, and it was conducted for 6 months, and persons had no adverse effects.
Great. And on top of that, we know Sicilian has been eating a lot of moro oranges, I presume, for many generations. I assume. Is moro oranges a big part of the diets over there? Or?
Yes, it is. It's, the blood oranges are widely used throughout Sicily. And,
yeah,
I believe the moro oranges have been around since the 19th century there in Sicily.
Interesting. Again, someday I have to get there to check it out myself. So, Jodi-Ann, is there any other either potential benefits or findings about Morosil you'd like to share before we wrap up?
I mean, Morosil, it's a great product. It's able to assist persons in their weight management journey, but it's also a potent antioxidant. So if you're looking for antioxidant benefits, you can get that there as well. It's also able to indirectly assist with various cardiovascular functions. So, that's all I can say in terms of recommending the product.
Now, look, it has a lot of benefits. The primary benefits certainly of accelerating, fat loss and weight loss too, but also just helping you maintain what you are is certainly beneficial. And then obviously any oxidative stress benefits on top of that is a nice bonus. Well, Jodi-Ann, we really want to thank you for joining us today. This has been really helpful, especially as many folks get refocused on their bodies and their weight management properties. Before we know it, it will be summer, right? So it's never too soon to start. For those who are interested in Morosil, you can find the same 400 milligram serving we've been talking about in a capsule of our TrueSlim product, which you can find at NatureCity.com, or Amazon too, if you prefer to do your shopping there. So Jodi-Ann, thank you so much, and it was great to see you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great seeing you too, and it has been great working with you over these years.
So that's it for this week's episode. You can subscribe to the NatureCity podcast on YouTube. You can also listen to us on your favorite streaming services. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcast, also Google Podcast, or you can go to NatureCity.com, our website, and sign up for our email list. Each week, you'll get an email alert when a new podcast episode drops, and you'll be able to stay up on what's new and interesting in the world of supplements. So I'm Carl Pradelli, and I'll see you next week.